What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of HRT. I hope your week was swell. Today, we're talking about sex. We're talking about doing the do. Today's guest is a sex coach. His name is Ayce. I learned so fucking much today because I'm a virgin. I learned so much today from Ayce. He shared his story with me, really inspiring story, and he shared his knowledge about him being a sex coach and what he's learned along the way. I think this is a really interesting episode. Shit, I have never talked about before on the podcast, so definitely stay tuned for that. And make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram at HRT Podcast. Subscribe to my Patreon, join my Discord. Check out After Dark if you haven't already. I would appreciate it. I got good content for After Dark. So if you haven't checked that out, I'm offended. Please go do so. I love you all so much. Let's just go talk to Ayce. Bye. All right, Ayce, I'm going to start by asking where you're from.
Awesome. Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan, and that's where I came out. But now I live in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, slay. I love Colorado. How does Colorado treat you as a trans person?
It's so different. So when I came out in Michigan, I struggled a lot because I was in a conservative, Republican, Christian place. And I was really well known. I was an executive leader for a really large Christian organization. And so that's what I was known for. And so then when I came out, I was like, man, I really got to get out of here and go to a safer area where people don't know who I am and I can kind of create who I want to be. And I had a community of support out here of like 5 people.
Okay.
And so they really just rallied around me and said, hey, yeah, if you drive across the country and move out here, we'll support you.
Wow.
And so I've got a really great support system out here.
That's really cool. So you just kind of like up and kind of left your life behind a little bit and just started anew. And you kind of moved because you're trans, right? Is that like the whole
Absolutely.
point? Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole reason. Yeah, my family struggled with it. My friends were actually fairly receptive of it, which was interesting because they are super conservative Republican, most of them. And so when I came out, I was a little concerned, and there was a little bit of like interesting dialogue and a lot of really great questions. But because we had established such a solid friendship, they were like, hey, we love you. And so if this is the decision you want to make for your life, we support you and we're here for you. So that's been really cool.
Wow. I love that. Good for you, man. And how long ago did you move to Colorado, did you say?
I just moved here like 6 or 7 months ago. I'm back in like November, December.
Oh, wow. Wait, so how old are you?
I'm 40.
40, king. Oh my God, you look like, I don't know, 27. Shit.
I get that all the time. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah,
such a compliment.
Of course. Now
I think it's the tea. The tea helps you look a little bit younger too.
Fountain of youth for sure. So you just moved to Colorado. That's dope. Now, when did you come out as trans?
About 2 years ago.
Okay. How long have you?
So it hasn't been long.
How long have you been on hormones?
Just a year.
A year? Wow. Yeah. I thought maybe like 7.
Yeah, I mean, my voice dropped right away, and I did the medical transition part all in about a course of about 12 months. And so I went from presenting pretty female. I mean, I had short hair and everything like that prior to the medical transition. But I had a large chest. I could not bind. I could not hide, right? And so for me, when I had top surgery, May 31 of last year, it was like, all right, let's do this. And like I was on a fast track to do whatever I could to get towards the passing zone because that was my goal for me personally. I know not everybody does that. Not everybody wants that, and that's totally cool. But for me, that was a really important piece of my transition process was to try to get to this stage where I could go out and present in a way that I wouldn't probably be questioned or asked about.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I moved to Colorado that actually my face started looking more masculine. I could actually grow some facial hair, that kind of stuff. And I really haven't had an issue since I moved here with being misgendered, which has been really cool.
Love that. Now you Did you start on injections?
I did. Yeah, I did injections for about a year, a little bit over a year. But I was having a really hard time with the troughing period. And so the first couple of days after I'd take an injection, I'd feel really great. My mood was awesome. Like it felt super stable. And then as the week progressed, it would just tank. And by the end of the week, I'd be like, oh man, my mental health really sucks right now.
Mm.
And so I took chart of it and like I like wrote it down, like days that I was having really good days and when I was having really bad days. And there was a direct correlation towards the end of the week. Almost all the time, I would just go into this mood, into this slump.
I should really.
So I asked my doctor, like, is there anything I could do? Can I take tea twice a week? Can I, go on to, gel or something like that? And apparently they haven't really studied the effects of taking tea more than once a week. But my doctor was like, hey, you might want to just go to gel because then that way you're getting the same dose every day. You're not going to have that troughing period. So I started testing that out about a month ago, and it seems to be working really well. The only issue is like if you have a female partner or you have pets or you like to swim, like sometimes a topical gel is just not the best thing. So I'm kind of working through that right now of what's better for me. Do I want to take the gel and have that steady mood throughout the week, or do I want to, test something else out? So I'm pretty new on it, but I'm gonna test it out and see what's best for me.
Hell yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
am with you there. I feel like I should fucking like write down how I'm feeling at the end of the week every week because like
Yeah.
I have no patience like for the dumbest shit sometimes, and I sit here and I'm like, I really wonder if it's from the testosterone or if I'm just like, or if I need therapy. Like I have no fucking clue. And I know I've been on testosterone for 7 years, and I've never like taken the time to like figure that out.
Yeah.
But I want to switch to gel. So I kind of love when my guests are on gel because I get to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of trying to actually switch to gel, but folks, I get my testosterone through folks are giving me a hard time about it and shit. How do you get your testosterone, by the way?
Just through my doctor here. I go to Planned Parenthood actually, and then they just send it to Costco. So it's not been an issue for me.
Nice.
But I have decent insurance, so that also helps.
Yeah. My insurance sucks, so I feel like I think that's why they're giving me a hard time over it. But
insurance, man, it can be such hit or miss.
I know,
it just depends.
It's so unfair. But did you, when you were on injections, did you like, besides the mood swings, I guess we can call them, like, did you have any issues with the injections itself or anything?
I did not. No. I mean, I'm not really afraid of needles, so that wasn't a big deal to me. Just got really used to it, and I actually was excited for the day when I could take tea. I was like, oh yeah, all right, here we go again.
Nice.
And I know that's not everybody's experience.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't a problem.
For me, I was like so excited. I'm not going to be afraid of needles. It's going to be nothing. And like the first time, okay, I had some issues, but then gradually it was like, okay, whatever, it's worth it. I don't care. And then as time went on, I just got less and less excited to take my shot. And now I'm like, fuck it. I don't care anymore. I don't care. Just give me the gel.
Well, and there's some people that just end up going off from tea after a few years because they've had the effects that they really wanted to take hold. You don't lose that.
Right.
And so for some people, that's a good choice too.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I know somebody who gets like a massive testosterone injection like every 5 years or something like that.
Oh wow!
I'm like,
okay,
dang, I'm gonna look into that. Like shit.
No, that's interesting. Right? I'm sure you'd feel really great for the first like couple weeks, and then eventually it would start to.
Yeah, I wonder how long it would take for it to like those mood swings to kick in. Like year 3.5, you start to get really irritable.
Oh, it's too funny.
Now talk to me about surgeries. You said you are 1 year post-op from top surgery?
Yeah. I had top surgery May 31 of last year.
Nice.
And then I had a hysterectomy last fall. And then I had a little bit of an issue with that. My vaginal cuff actually came undone, and so I ended up having to have emergency surgery, which totally sucked. Like 9 weeks later. Damn. But I'm like 6 months out of that, and I'm doing great now. So
period. I need to get a hysterectomy too. I'm behind, if you can't tell.
It's all right. And you got to decide when it's right for you. For me, I was having a lot of issues, and so it just made sense. For some people, it doesn't bother them, and it's totally good.
See, me too. It doesn't Doesn't bother me. I can't see those organs, whatever. But like, I think I need to get it because like when the longer I go without testosterone, the more cramps I get. So
Okay.
hysterectomy is definitely in my future, but I'm just
Yeah.
lazy about it, I guess. I've been saying this for like a year.
Okay.
And I've done nothing.
Deciding what you want for a hysterectomy, that was a big deal for me though too. Like, do you want a total hysterectomy? Do you want your ovaries to stay? Do you like I was trying to do research and I'm in sexology, so like I'm pretty well equipped. I have a lot of people around me that deal with these types of things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It took me weeks to find like the information I needed to make the right choice for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it can throw you into menopause. It can lead to a whole bunch of different issues if you take your ovaries out, and sometimes you like if you don't take T, you kind of need those ovaries for your other hormones to connect, and
Right.
it's just such a wild ride to try to figure out as a person that's on T and medically transitioning like what's right for me and like medically what's the best decision.
Right.
That was a hard journey for me to figure it out.
What did you end up doing with your hysterectomy?
Yeah, so I ended up keeping my ovaries and getting rid of everything else.
That's what I would do as well.
Yeah, just because I needed that reassurance that if I, financially couldn't afford T or something like that, I also didn't want to go into menopause and have all those issues with atrophy,
Mm-hmm.
which ironically I have issues with atrophy now and I'm trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a journey for sure.
The struggles we got to go through, for real.
I know, right? But it's worth it.
It is. It's 100% worth it. Okay, wait. So you said you're 40. When did you come out as trans again?
Yeah, 38.
38. Okay, slay.
Yeah.
Slay.
Yeah.
Now, when did you first realize you were trans? Like, you came out at 38, but how long did you know prior? How long were you closeted for, I guess?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a convoluted topic. I think I've always known that I'm trans. I just always fought it. I was super repressed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, since the age of like 4, my parents probably knew. When I came out to my parents, my mom was like, "Yeah, we knew. We knew all your life." I'm like, "Well, why didn't you help me like process this? Like, I'm sitting here as a kid, like holding it all in and having nobody to talk to about this."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, yeah, well, we didn't really have the tools or resources to help you process it and help you do it in a really good way either." Back in the 90s, it wasn't really talked about. So it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, my life would have been totally different if I would have been able to. I mean, I struggled a ton in high school. I struggled a ton in college. In 2015, I cut my hair short, started dressing more masculine. But again, I worked for a really well-established Christian organization. I was really high up as an executive leader. And so there was always that tension of like, how far can I go without someone questioning me, questioning my gender identity, expression, those kinds of things. So I pushed the bounds for a long time. And I think people questioned, but I think people actually thought I was a butch lesbian and not trans, which is really interesting.
Yeah, most of them do. I feel like, especially when we're all in our like confused phase. I feel like that's normally what we get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you transitioned obviously a little bit later in life. What are your feelings towards that? I don't want to use the word regret because I'm sure you don't regret anything, but like, do you wish that you transitioned when you were a little bit younger, or are you just like chilling with where you are now?
Yeah, I do wish that I would have realized it a little bit earlier and probably allowed space for me to like feel that. What ended up happening was when I was 38, I had a low back injury and I ended up going paralyzed. And I think I was I was storing the pain in my body. And I wasn't able to, verbally express it. So my body held on to it and then it was screaming out for help. And so that was my realization point of like, oh shit, like I can't continue to deny myself and repress those feelings. Like I really do need to acknowledge them if I want to live a healthy, vibrant lifestyle. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, I didn't really have a choice. I couldn't keep living the way I was. I needed to make a change. And then once I did, my entire world fell apart, clearly. But it was probably one of the best things because there was a death of the ego that needed to be stripped from me.
Mm.
And I needed to grow in a way that was way more vulnerable and engaging with people. I think I had gotten to a point in my life where I was really closed off from relationships because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could be myself. I didn't feel like I could be seen, heard, known, and loved. And through my coming out process, yeah, it was really hard, but it was one of those times in my life where I actually felt genuinely loved for who I was. And I didn't have to hide anymore. And so that was just a really big like awakening for myself that I don't know if I would have been ready for when I was 18. But when I was 40, I feel like I had the support system around me and I had enough emotional intelligence that I could actually engage and do it in a way that was incredibly healthy
Mm-hmm.
and good for my soul.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And that's like,
Yeah.
that's so true. Because I don't want to say that like transitioning at a young age is bad or anything. That's not how I feel. But
No.
speaking on my own experience a little bit, I transitioned very young. I was
Mm-hmm.
freshly 18, I think, when I started hormones, because
Yeah.
I was like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm doing it. I don't fucking care. And I did. And I wish that I had thought things through, like, you know, the whole freezing your egg situation before you start testosterone. And I know that I could still do that, but there are things that I wish maybe I thought of, because having kids, for example, is important to me one day. But as
Absolutely.
you said, you know, you got to, at an older age, you got to think it through a little bit more as a mature adult,
Yeah.
you know, and go
Yeah.
over all those things in your head, where I was just young and stupid and just wanted my hormones. And I was like, I don't fucking care. Give them to me. So, I mean, I feel like another one of my guests had said that, who were also in their 40s or 50s, and said, you know, like, it makes me sad that I, you know, I didn't get to live my childhood as a boy or a girl, but
Mhm.
at least, you know, I got to think all these things through when I was
Yeah.
older.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me to my next question for you, is like, some trans people, how do I say this? Some trans people, like, for a while, for me, I didn't wanna think about who I was before I was trans. Like, she
Mhm.
was dead. She dead. We don't know her. We don't think about her. We don't refer to her. Now I can think about her. You know what I mean? Like, now, like, I
Mm.
can acknowledge that that was a thing and that's fine, but for a long time,
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. Where are you with that, do you think?
Ooh, man,
I know.
that's getting
I
deep.
know.
I just had a session yesterday with one of my mentors. It was actually a body work session, in where you get really vulnerable and you just allow any and all parts of you to exist. And I've had over the last 2 years, I've had probably 10 sessions with this person.
Mm,
And after the session, he said, there was such a great like molding of the two, the feminine and the masculine. I was able to play with them in a way that I hadn't been able to do before.
mm,
And that's because prior to my experiences with him, I was shutting down the feminine 100%. I wanted to just be masculine. I wanted to like fully embrace that. But I think that there's this tension, and we all have it, of that masculine feminine dynamic, and we should be able to move fluidly through it.
mm,
And sometimes we choose to repress it because we're protecting ourselves. You know, it's a protection mechanism. But once you get to a point in your journey where you're really able to just self reflect and really get down and like understand who you are, I think there's an importance between the two. The
mm,
polarities really play off from each other,
mhm,
and if you can use those to your advantage, like I think that eventually in life you're going to really expand. I'm not that far down the line, right? I'm only a
mhm,
couple years into this process,
mhm,
but I'm starting to see like my feminine can come out in a really healthy way. Like there's a softness, there's a surrender there.
mm,
If I hide that, I come out into the world and I'm just this harsh human being that nobody want to interact with, right?
mm,
So I think that there's like we need to learn how to play with it, and I think we're all on our own journeys as to like how fluid can we be and how can we embrace who we really truly are,
mm,
because in all reality, gender is kind of a social construct, right? Like it's one of those things that society says you should be this or you should be this. Well, maybe I want to be a little bit of both, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
And maybe that's some of my non-binary piece coming out too.
Mm,
I think we all have that to some extent.
true.
We might not all be aware of it.
Very
But
good
it's kind
point.
of fun to learn how to play instead of being afraid of one or the other.
Mhm.
Just like, hey, okay, there's this tension here. How can I play with that? And what does that look like for me?
Right. 100%. I agree with you. When I came out as trans, I refused to show any femininity. I feel like
Mm,
I stopped liking the feminine things that I thought weren't okay to like as a man. And
mm,
the longer I was on testosterone, the more comfortable I felt with myself. Therefore, I could open the door to those more feminine attributes. And as soon as I
yeah.
did that, I've never been more comfortable in my skin playing with both of
Mm,
those things. So I completely agree with you there. 100%.
yeah, cool.
100%.
Awesome.
Another question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
You're talking about religion a
Mhm.
lot. Now, you completely seems like you broke free from that mindset. How? How'd you do that?
Well, when your world falls apart, it's not too hard.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so Christianity is all I knew for my entire life. I grew up in a really solid Christian household, loving parents, all of
Mhm.
that. My entire family, all my community, everybody was Christian. There wasn't a single person that, well, I take that back. There were maybe 3 people that were not Christian.
Mm,
But I mean, for the most part, and when my world fell apart, I realized that a lot of my Christian friends weren't really there for me. They
mm,
didn't really care. And I was like, man, like, where's the empathy? Where's the compassion? Where's the genuine care? Like, what people say Christianity is all about, love. Like,
yeah.
I didn't feel it. I felt incredibly alone and abandoned and rejected. And
Mm,
so what that did was it caused me to really critically think. Um,
love that.
and I don't think this is right for everybody, but for me, I had to completely cut myself off from all religion, like any religion. I just was like, I want nothing to do with this for now, and maybe I'll come back to it in 2, 5, 10 years. But for right now, like I want to find out who I am without having those labels of good, bad, right,
Mm,
wrong put on me. So what I did was I just kind of stepped away and I just decided I'm going to figure out who I am and what do I want, need, and desire in this life.
yeah.
And as I stripped away those feelings of what's right, wrong, good, or bad, it was like, oh, maybe nothing's right, wrong, good, or bad. Maybe it just is.
Mm,
And can I live in that space of like, I'm having a bad day, in quotes, right? Maybe it's not a bad day. Maybe I just need to wake up to something. Maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. Maybe I need to be aware of this and engaged and I don't know, figure it out. So I've gotten to a place in my life where instead of looking at it from a religious hierarchy of this is how life should go, these are the rules you should follow, I look at it as like, how can I be more myself? How can I love other people better? As long as what I'm doing isn't hurting somebody else, I don't see that there's anything wrong with it.
oh
So
yeah.
that allows me to like go into the dark sides of myself and play.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's been one of like the best things
Mm.
is to like be like, I want to try this kinky thing out, and it's not wrong.
Mm,
I can totally do
period.
that if I want to do that. I have the choice and the voice to say, I want to try that out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find some people to try it out with that. They have the mutual desire,
Right.
right? And
100%.
like that's opened up a whole new world for me of like exploration, curiosity, joyfulness, playfulness. Like it's taken all of the regret and like that frustration of like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't want to do this to like, it's a part of who I am. I want to express this. I want to try this out.
Mm,
Let's do it.
I
And
love
then if
that.
I like it, cool. If I don't like it, okay, that's just more information.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I want to try next? Do I want to, take it back a notch and not go as crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like we all have voice and choice.
Mm-hmm.
And to realize that we have the ability to make those decisions on our own, that was super just comforting, I guess, to me. And also, it gave me a place to play
Yeah.
and just really enjoy.
I love that. What's life if you don't get to explore? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, and learn about yourself. And especially when it comes to religion and as a trans person, especially, and people always shaming you for being yourself or liking certain things or whatever, shame is like, in my opinion, is one of the hardest things to get away from, like just
Mm.
feeling shame around who you are and the things that you enjoy. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that, like, I don't have to feel ashamed about these things
Mm.
anymore, because that's like, I don't know, that's just everything to me, because like I think a
Yeah.
lot of trans people are made to feel shameful, so when I see
Mm.
another trans person just fucking being happy and doing whatever the hell makes them happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, there's so much freedom to be had, right? I mean, we live in a world right now in the United States where, man, it feels like our freedoms are being taken from us, especially as trans people, right? There's 515 bills out there that are going against who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to exist and enjoy my life,
Mm.
right? And if what I'm doing isn't going to hurt anybody else, why can't I do that?
Right.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So
Right.
that's kind of the mentality I have of, like, if I can just be a good person in this world, help other people out, and enjoy my life, all right, let's do this. And that's what I hope for everybody.
Right. 100%. Me too. Do you ever look at religion and what you went through and
Mhm.
feel just like kind of like you're holding a grudge a little bit because of what you went through with it? Because I would. Shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
a lot
blame
of
you.
hurt, really deep-seated hurt.
Yeah.
And therapy's helping me through it. But yeah, there's a lot of times where I wish religion didn't even exist.
Mm-hmm. No, like, me too. I get it. I hear all these horror stories from my guests and shit. I'm like, fuck. Like, I wish it just wasn't a thing sometimes. And
Yeah.
I most of the time think I still don't even know where I stand with my own religion. I don't even know. I'm still figuring it out. But most days I
Mm-hmm.
think that I believe in God. I'm not saying I don't think I'm
Yeah.
a certain religion, but I think I believe in God.
Yep.
But sometimes I
Yeah.
wish it fucking didn't exist, because like the amount of pain it puts people through beyond trans people is just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about that all day.
Yeah, we could go on a tangent for a while, I'm sure.
One more question for you before we get to what you do for a living, which I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the people in your life right now. Do you have any trans people in your life? Have you ever met any other trans people?
Yeah.
How do you feel about having trans people in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the most important thing for me was to find my people. And so when I lived in Michigan, it was really hard to find trans people,
Mm-hmm.
especially trans people that I connected to. A lot of them are, not really out. They're not, they might be stealth. They don't really want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that. And when I was at that season of my life where, like, I was questioning things and I was trying to figure it out, I couldn't find people locally that were really far enough ahead in their journey that could help me. So what I did was I asked a sex coach, actually, if she knew anybody. And she's like, yeah, I got some connections for you. So she connected me to a handful of people throughout the United States that are a little bit further along in their journey than I was. And then I could ask those questions of, like, what's it like to be on T? What's it like to, have top surgery, bottom surgery, all that kind of stuff. So when I moved out to Colorado, the scene out here is way different.
Yeah.
A trans person can walk around and they're not going to get questioned.
Right.
They're not going to feel like their safety is in jeopardy for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so out here, I am in a part of multiple different groups, and I have a bunch of trans people that I'm connected to. It's just a little bit easier out here. But there's a definite, like, difference between the two cultures for sure.
Right. Do you think
Yeah.
it's important to have trans people in your life as a trans person?
I would say it's important to at least find one person that's further along in their journey so that you can have those conversations. I think there's a lot of people out there that are really hurt, and they probably haven't done the work themselves to work through some of those things. So if you're looking for a mentor or a professional even, like, it's really incredibly important to really vet those people and find out, like, do you have similar lifestyles or similar goals and desires in life, and do you respect this person's lifestyle? um, when I was searching for people, I found a vast array of people who had done the work and people who are just really hurt. And if you're going to learn from somebody, if you're going to like really engage in conversation and try to grow as an individual, for me, it was incredibly important to find the right people to be speaking into my life. Just because you can get into a world of hurt if you engage with the wrong people at the wrong time, because that can lead you down a whole different path. So that was just a little bit of my journey of like testing the waters and finding those people that I could trust and have safety with was really important to me.
I agree 100%. I say it all the time. Everybody knows, but I'm 7 years on T. I went 5-6 years of being trans with not a single trans person in my life. Criminal, horrible. Don't know how I survived, because now I've, even through this podcast, like I have so many trans friends now that I get to talk to, and even my guests. Like, it is so important to learn about somebody else's experience, even just a little bit, because there's not much out there for us. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not a lot of resources. I mean, there is now for sure, but like
it's starting to come out, yeah.
Right, but you don't get that actual whatever without actually talking to somebody and like hearing their story. And even like, even if you're not hearing their story, it's still like, I'm thinking about the friends that I have, my trans friends, when we're not talking about trans related things, it's still just nice to be friends with somebody who has gone through the shit that I've gone through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody else understands it. It's a totally different lifestyle. Yeah.
100%. Now let's talk about what you do for a living. Tell me about
awesome, the juicy stuff.
Yeah, somatic sexology. Talk to me about that. Yeah. I am so interested.
Yes. So my journey started a couple years ago when I watched the show Sex, Love, and Goop on Netflix. So if you haven't watched that, I would suggest doing so. It's something you can binge watch on a weekend. Basically, there's two professionals on there, Jaya and Darshana, who invite clients into a room, and then they have really vulnerable body work done. And so it's all sexological stuff, right? And so sexological body work is basically helping clients get into their bodies and figure out what they want, need, or desire from that place. Because the body doesn't lie. Whereas in the mind, like you can get all these thoughts in your mind that may or may not be true. But if you really sink into your body and you feel, okay, what do I really want in this moment? Your body can tell you exactly what you want and what would be the best for you. So as I was watching this show, I saw client after client get on the table and just like totally get vulnerable and get real, but like engage with their partners in a whole new way. And when I saw that, I was like, shit, I need that.
I need me some of that.
Right? I'm totally done with like this disassociation and like not engaging and not, connecting with people. And so I reached out to both Jaya and Darshana, and I was like, hey, like, how do I get involved in this? How do I become a client? What does this look like? And it's crazy expensive. And so I was like, oh man, I can't afford this. And I worked with Darshana for a bit. And then Jaya has like a coaching network. And so there's a bunch of people underneath her, and they're different price points, right? There's like entry level, master coaches, and then Jaya, who's like $100,000 or more to work with. And one of her colleagues became my sex coach. And so I went on this like year-long journey of gender identity, expression, and orientation, and just trying to figure out, what does this look like for me? And through that, I became a certified sex coach.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I can help other people who are maybe trans, non-binary, queer, kind of explore what their sexual identity, expression, orientation, gender looks like, and kind of go from there.
That's so fucking cool. Like, that's so dope. I'm like so interested in that. Now, how long have you been a sex coach?
Yeah, so I got certified last summer, and so I've just been doing this for almost a year, so not very long.
Nice. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming you like it.
Oh, I love it. It is so much fun.
That's so cool. What
Yeah.
would you say inspired you to be a sex coach?
Just the life change for me. Before I did this work as a client, I was numb. Like I couldn't feel in my body. I couldn't have relationships with people because I was so closed off. And as I did the deep dive for myself, um, I really was awakened to like what's possible and the pleasure that your body can have, and also like the amount of fun you can have with someone else.
Mm.
Like when you actually are truly, when you know yourself and you know someone else and their needs and desires, and like how you can play with each other in a way that is so like, I can't even put it into words because it's just so mind blowing how great the connection can be
Mm-hmm.
when you come from a place of embodiment versus a place of, I don't know, being numb or disassociated from who you are in your body.
Right, 100%. Now you said
Yeah.
do you focus on trans, queer, LGBT people? Like
I do, yeah.
that's cool. Awesome. We
Yeah, I
need
do have
that.
some heterosexual couples as well that I've worked with, but the reality is if somebody connects to me as a person, I'll probably be able to help them out, right?
Yeah.
But I understand the trans journey way better than a lot of sex coaches out there because I've gone through it.
Right.
And so I do get a lot of trans clients that come to me for help simply because like I have that personal experience and I've done the deep dive. Like I've gone to the darkest places of my soul and I came out and I'm totally cool and I'm in a really great space, right? And that can be, for anybody.
Right. 100%. And I think it's super, super, super important because I know that trans people in particularly kind of have trouble when it comes to sex sometimes because of the gender dysphoria and things that go into it, like 100%. Do you find that to be like a common theme with your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. Disassociation, dysphoria. Yeah, those are probably the two top things that people come to me with struggles with. But there's a whole lot of other things out there as well. I mean, every client's different.
Right. Yeah. That's so cool though. I think you should be super fucking proud of yourself because that's really giving a community what they need and it's not talked about enough. Like I don't think I've ever even really talked about it on the podcast, really, like how trans people struggle in that area. Because I mean, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Absolutely,
we struggle hard with our bodies, and sex can be a very vulnerable place, and to share that with somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, what I do talk about all the time is, relationships as a trans person, and always as a trans man at least, like not feeling good enough for a cisgendered woman, you know what I mean? And I talk about the relationship side, but I've never really talked about the sex side, but like it's the same thing. It's hard to, in general, for trans men to see themselves as real men just walking to the freaking store, and you put them in a very, very vulnerable situation with somebody else. It's gonna become even worse. I've been there. I've gone through it. That shit sucks. That shit sucks. Not fun. Have you ever experienced that yourself, or maybe have dealt with a client who has spoken that to you?
I absolutely experienced that as myself. I think almost every trans person does to some extent, right? My clients, some of them do and some of them don't. They don't necessarily express it, I guess. I'd say honestly the first piece that I work with clients to kind of work through what this looks like is to help them feel comfortable in their own body. Like, do you know like what feels good to you just on your own body? Like if you're doing self-pleasure or you're walking around in the world, like we repress so many of those desires to begin with. So if you start with yourself first and you really get to know yourself, that really kind of transforms and kind of goes into the relationship with you. And so that's one of the first things that I work with my clients is like, okay, what are the struggles that you personally have with yourself, with your body, with your mentality, with the way you walk around in the world? Tell me a little bit about that. And then we start addressing that on an individual level. And so it's very like client tailored specific. But the reality is once you love yourself and you know yourself well enough, then you can go into a relationship and you're not expecting your partner to provide or do things for you because you've got yourself. And that changes the game right there. If you're the one that's in control and is able to acknowledge, accept, and kind of move forward, like owning yourself and owning your own pleasure, that's what I've found changes the game for most clients.
No, I love that. And it makes complete sense. I mean, putting sex into the equation and taking out, you got to love yourself first. Like that's,
Yep.
you can't do anything in this world if you don't love yourself. I say that all the time. I mean, and it's not.
And it's really hard to do as a trans person. So like
facts.
Having somebody that you can just have, that you trust, that you can have those really vulnerable conversations with, because that's not something you're going to just talk to somebody about, in a coffee shop, right? I mean, these are things that like you need to have that safety and that trust established to feel comfortable enough to bear what's really at the root of it.
Right, 100%. I love that. What advice do you have for partners of trans people or LGBTQ plus people to better understand or support their significant others?
Yeah, I would say, can all of the person that's in front of you exist as they are? I think a lot of times we get into relationships and we expect the other person to change. And that's not necessarily the most helpful thing.
True.
Can you hold space for all of that person to exist, to be present and be loved unconditionally? That changes the game right there. Because you're not, doing a power play, or you're not trying to get something from somebody that they don't want to give you. You're allowing them to just be. That's where the power is.
That's all anybody wants to do too. Like, not even just trans people. Like, and if you're not willing to let your significant other just be and exist, what are you even doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah.
I love that. That's super, super, super important. I want to like dive a little bit more into the struggles of a trans person when it comes to sex, because I feel like just like gender is a social construct and shit like that, and trans men have to act a certain way, or men in general have to act a certain way. We all have to be masculine and whatnot, and feminine people have to act a certain way as well, and that also carries over to the bedroom, where I feel like a lot of not even trans people, just men in general feel ashamed of not being the most masculine in those situations. Well, and then if you think about trans men in those situations, we constantly, at least in the beginning of our transitions and stuff, always feel like we have to be the most masculine. And I feel like that's where even me, I've hurt myself in the process trying to fill this role of being this super, super masculine person all the time, outside of the bedroom, in the bedroom, whatever the hell. And has anyone talked to you about that? Like as a trans man, being like, I am a man, I'm masculine as hell, 100%. But there's things I want to try. There's things I want to do that aren't so masculine all the time, but it feels wrong because I'm a dude, and you know what I mean? Do you ever get that, or no?
I do, yeah. And what I work with clients is I do something called sexy sex labs, where you put certain constraints on a situation. So say you're in a relationship with someone and you've known them for a while, and you say, hey, I want to try something out with you. Say you wanted to try having sex with someone with a pack around.
Oh, slay. Yeah, perfect. Great example.
I mean, that's one that we all want to try, right? But you don't know if like your partner's going to enjoy it or whatever. You set up certain constraints going into it of saying, okay, this is going to be a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute, hour-long lab where we're simply going to test something out. We're going to see if we enjoy this. And then you set certain constraints to that, and you kind of go through the situation. And and you test it out. And you say, you don't have to like it. I don't have to like it. You may love it. You may hate it. As long as like it's not going against your boundaries, we're going to continue in this space. And if you don't feel comfortable, please tell me, right? And so you test it out. And it gives you a space to be like, hey, I'm going to fumble. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to say something that's probably not super sexy and not going to turn you on. That's totally okay. Like, we're just trying this out to see if this is something that we would enjoy doing together. And I found that that's super helpful because it gives you a space where you're not trying to connect with your partner in an intimate way and grow your relationship or whatever. This is a set experiment we're going to try out.
Yeah.
And it could totally fail. And we might laugh about it later. Or we might really like it and include it in our sex life. But it kind of gives you that freedom to like be like, hey, I want to test this out. You cool with that? Yeah. Okay. And then, you know, you don't have the conversation right away. You kind of test it out, like see how it sits in your body. And, you know, schedule a time on your calendar to have a conversation a day or 7 days later or whatever. And say, okay, how was that for you? Did you enjoy that? What didn't you like? What did you like? In a non-judgmental space, right? So it gives you that safety to go in, to explore, to try something super masculine or super feminine that doesn't necessarily define you. It just says, hey, I have an interest in this. Let's see. Let's see if there's something there for both of us.
Right. That's great advice. I love that. I think no matter who you are, trans or not, sex is a very hard thing to talk about and be open about. I don't know why. We're all adults. Like, fucking everybody relax. It's okay. But in a relationship aspect, I get it. Like, it's hard to, especially being trans, speak up and be like, hey, mind if we try this, or no, don't do that, some shit like that. Like, it can be very hard, and I don't necessarily know why. Like, I've struggled myself speaking up. And
well, in the moment, there's a lot at stake. So if you're just doing something with someone and you're like, oh, I want to try this, but I don't know if I should or if I shouldn't, like, that's probably not the best time to try something new unless you've predetermined that this is what we're going to do. But you know, set up a conversation about it later when you're not in a high stakes situation where there's not emotions and energy and sexual energy flowing through it, but just to have like a 5 to 10 minute conversation, say, hey, can we talk about this? It takes the tension out of the conversation or even out of the experience. And it gives you a safer space to play and just see what may or may not work.
And just like anything, like exploring that stuff, I feel like is just, it makes life so much easier. It makes it more fun. You can grow with your partner. Like, it definitely pays off when you do it and you just be vulnerable and open up, like 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's important for trans people because we already struggle so much in other areas. Like, can we at least have that? Like, damn.
Well, and when you're on T, of course you want to have that.
No, like 100%. How do you feel about, I know you're not prepared for this question, so if you don't want it in, no worries. How do you feel about like when right-wing people say that trans people over-sexualize things, or right-wing people think that it's all about sex for us?
Man, that's deep. I think a lot of times when anybody comes at us for any reason, it can be sex, it can be something else. I think a lot of times it's because they haven't done the work themselves to work through it. They haven't asked the questions. They haven't gotten curious with it. They haven't experimented. They have maybe a closed mind towards those types of things. And maybe they're afraid of it. There's like a genuine either fear or ignorance, I think, that they're experiencing. And that's on them. And I've gotten to a point in my journey where I let that be on them. They can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. Like, that's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of me. And so once I understood that, I think that's when the game started to change for me, because it wasn't really about their perceptions, their ideas, their condensation, whatever it may be. It was really about, like, who am I and how can I respond to this, or how does it affect me personally? And if it doesn't, forget about it.
Right. Forget
Like,
about
don't
it.
waste my time thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not your job it's not anyone's job to educate them. They should go
Exactly.
educate themselves. 100%. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Now, what are your future goals or projects in the realm of LGBTQ plus sexual health coaching?
Yeah. So I feel like so many people just don't even know this exists. So that's the reason why I'm doing podcasts right now. Like, I'm on a bunch of them
I
over the
love that.
course of the next month.
That's awesome.
Because I mean, I was struggling before I came into this, and I was like, I mean, if I'm most honest, I was incredibly suicidal. It was really dark, and I didn't know where to go or who could help me, who could resource me. And so I just want to say, like, we exist. There's people out there who can help, and that are resourced to do so. Make sure you do your research, because there's a lot of people out there that will be like, yeah, I'm a sex coach and I have experience in this. And it's like, but really? So do your research, contact me. Even if you don't want to coach with me, that's totally fine. I have a network of like 250 coaches that are certified and trained in this. And so if you don't connect directly with me, that's really cool. I can send you on to the next person. But man, like, that is my goal, and my desire is for queer and trans people, non-binary people, to really know that you don't have to just go to Google and do a mad search and try to find your answers. Like, there's most likely a professional out there that has a ton of resources for you that will really help you. And when I came across the erotic blueprints, it's basically a framework in how to live your life with other people in a way that's really healthy. And so it transformed my sex life, yes, but it also transformed like my relationships with other people and how I interact with the world. And so I think my goal is that more trans people just realize that these resources are here for you, and then help resource them through that.
I love that. I love that a lot, because I think, again, I do think a lot of trans people don't know that this exists for them, and they're kind of struggling in silence because they're ashamed and don't know how to talk about sex, when trans people are sexualized all the time and shamed for talking about sex because people don't see the difference between gender and sex. So I really believe what you're doing is so important. That being said, do you have any advice for a trans individual out there listening who could benefit from some sex coaching?
Yeah. I'd say fuck societal norms in the construct that they have. Do whatever makes you happy. So find out what that is and do more of that, and simply follow your pleasure. If sex coaching is something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you to other people. You could become potentially a client of mine. I can share a ton of resources with you. But at the end of the day, like, live your life out of pleasure, because there's enough pain in this world. I don't think we need any more of that.
And like, no matter in any aspect too, like, think about pleasure before pain, because again, too much of that. I love that. That's great advice. Before we head out for the day, let's do trans song of the week. What did you pick?
Cool. Man, I had a hard time picking.
I see that.
I have a playlist actually on Spotify that has like probably 150 songs that have been really important to me through my journey. And right now, the song that's like probably being played the most is "You're Gonna Love It" by Sun and Heat.
Ooh, I think I've heard of that song before.
Yeah,
I think I have. I love that. That will be in the description below for anybody who wants to give it a listen. I keep forgetting, guys. I'm very sorry. I'm going to make a playlist of all of the songs that every guest has suggested, and make a big playlist out of it. But yeah, that will be in the description below for anybody who wants to check it out. Ayce, where can people follow you and check you out?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. The trans sex coach.
That's awesome.
Or Ayce Kipton. Ace Kipton is more like my personal profile, but a lot of people are following me there, so that's totally fine.
Nice.
And then also you can find me online, acekipton.com. Just spell out my name.
He's got a website. I love that. That's dope.
Yeah.
All of those things will be in the description below. Please, please, please go support Ace because what you're doing is so fucking cool and greatly needed for the trans community. So go follow Ace and make sure you follow me at HRT Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. I post almost every single day. I drop podcast episodes every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go check out After Dark if you haven't already. An episode just dropped today. Well, it won't be today for you, but it's today for me. Go check that out. I recorded it with my friends Gabe and Tyler. You know them very well by now. We reacted to old pictures of ourselves from before we started hormones. So if you want to go see the cringeness of that, I suggest you go check it out. I drop those videos every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I stream video games with my friends every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my Discord. Subscribe to my Patreon. I have content coming out of every hole of my body. And if you guys aren't subscribed to my Patreon, you are truly missing out. And I'm tired of yelling at you about it. So please, I'm begging at this point. And that's about it. Please turn on my notifications, my post notifications. I would appreciate it. You'll be notified when I post. And yeah, that's about it for today. Ace, thank you so freaking much. I feel like I learned a lot today. I feel very educated. And I thank you.
Yes. Live your life in pleasure, man.
Period. I love you all so much. I will see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.
I love when guests do the bye as well.